Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna Levi. If you do not know who I am, this is a presentation on the video analysis for the fulfillment of this course. The movie that I chose was The Hate That You Give. I really enjoy this movie, so watching it again and just watching it from a future clinician in the next few weeks just helped me have an opportunity to develop more of what the stages of intervention look like, and I'm excited to share the information that I processed and came up with from watching this movie. As a clinician, the first thing you want to do is introductions and formalities. Even this is before the 4 stages of intervention begin. With a client, you want to know first, who is your client? So the client walks in. Who is this person that you're going to be servicing? The client that I chose was Star Carter, which is the 16-year-old African-American young girl. She's actually the leading character of the film. And during the film, we get to see things about her and learning things about her. But if I did not see this film, I would want to know who my client is. The next thing that I potentially would do as a clinician would be establishing boundaries for myself and the client. Boundaries on the line of when it comes to her sharing, I don't want to overstep as a clinician, especially when it's a sensitive subject like it is with her friend being killed by law enforcement in front of her. So I want to set boundaries and, know different things that are okay to talk about or things that slowly have to be developed in making conversation about. The next thing would be consent. I would want to have my client's consent. Since my client is a minor as well, I would want the family's consent as well. And then next with confidentiality. Confidentiality basically saying that whatever is being shared with me and shared from my client to me and me to my client will remain in the room that we are sitting in. No one else will know about this unless the person is trying to cause harm to themselves or someone else. But other than that, what goes on in the sessions will stay between me and the client, which is Star. So what's important moving forward with the engagement piece is you must engage the client and build rapport within the sessions. The theory that I chose to utilize with building rapport with Star, being my client, is solution-focused theory. The solution-focused theory is designed to be collaborative and collegial as opposed to having an interpretation component to it. The objective is to encourage the client to remember and experience their own resilience that they have within themselves. And that within this theory, any change in a positive direction is good change, and we want to keep moving towards the positive change for the client. Also, this theory gives the client the opportunity to be the one to lead the dialogue. That's very important. Sometimes as clinicians and as clients, they may view us having the answers for them because of the title, but within this theory, it doesn't let the social worker do that. It lets the social worker sit back and listen to the client, especially when it comes to people that experience trauma such as Star. And that's very important to let her lead the dialogue. And within that, solution-focused brief therapy also for a client who has experienced violence or a crime that has, been detrimental to their mental health, the clinician is not trying to fix what went wrong with the client, but the clinician is helping guide the client to remember and experience their own resilience for the betterment of their health. And in this case, it will be Star's mental health. So that's very important. And when it comes to the engagement piece of getting Star, to communicate with me as a clinician, have that dialogue, I will always bring up cultural competencies to let her know that I understand what's going on. Now we have seen police brutality on a magnitude level in the United States. And with Star being a client that has directly experienced that, even though I have not directly experienced police brutality, I understand her frustration, her emotions that she has that is evoked from the event that occurred. So with a client, you will always want to have some cultural competency, especially when it's dealing with trauma. The next piece is the assessment. So it is important to utilize a biopsychosocial spiritual approach with my particular client, Star. A biopsychosocial spiritual assessment could be utilized with any type of client, no matter race, gender, or what sexuality, whatever the person chooses to, identify with. It does not matter to this type of assessment. So Star basically lives in a neighborhood with little to no diversity, predominantly black neighborhood that is fueled by violence, drugs, and poverty. So that's very important to realize, because now we're getting to see Star's environment. Okay, well, how did her problem and her environment that she live in are interconnected? But then there's also this factor that Star goes to school on the other side of town, which is in a predominantly white community. Most of the students at her school are white, but her father wants her to have a greater education because they come from the same neighborhood. Her father was raised in the same neighborhood that they lived in, and he knows that there is potential to be a product of your environment, and he doesn't want that for his children. But at the same time, her father instills black liberation in her and her brothers. So that's very important as well. Star community, home community, is actually a big part of her life socially. We see her in the movie hanging out with her friends, and she's typically spending most of her days within her community when it's not school days. Also, when someone in the community dies from things like police brutality, the neighborhood community serves as a familial support. And this is very important because now, with her experiencing Khalil's death, now it will be essential for the community to be that familiar support with her, which we have seen when Star went to Khalil's grandmother's house and people were in support of her and wanted to make sure that she was okay. Also, the utilization of this particular assessment helps with exploring different interventions that may be productive to Star as a client. Analyzing her environment, her social life is very important, because this could be the center on finding healing and interventions for Stars when it comes to working through her trauma. So next will be the intervention process. Intervention can look many different ways. So I know some of my peers may have did different interventions for Star, but I found two for myself that I felt like will be beneficial to helping Star heal and maneuvering through her trauma that she has experienced. So the first one I suggested would be journaling. Journaling is sometimes our way to use our voice without directly saying it out of our mouths. And I think with Star having so many emotions and influences of so many different things of both of her communities, journaling would be beneficial for her. Her taking the time out of the week and actually putting the date of the day she journaled. And I feel like this would be essential to the intervention part, because now Star is able to see from the beginning date to more later down the line of our intervention how her emotions have changed. What has she found in herself, her resilience, and with inside of herself to help her own self, find solutions for her trauma and things she may have experienced with the role of Khalil's death. So that's very important intervention that I think will be useful to her. Another would be group therapy. Typically, some people don't like to do group therapy because it's typically within their community. But for Star, some of the members of her community serve as a familial support. So this will be important for her to try to at least utilize group therapy as that. With attending group therapy, she could meet people that have directly experienced police brutality or indirectly. Maybe it might look like their child. Maybe Khalil's grandmother or mother might be at the group therapy, and now she's able to have this dialogue with people that have had the similar experiences to her, and maybe this might open up the dialogue within us having sessions, as well as, her listening to other people's stories and finding solutions and ways to help her cope, and understanding her resilience that she has, and how that looked like moving forward when it comes to healing from her trauma. Client feedback is essential to the evaluation portion of the intervention. This is saying, am I giving my client the best service that they need? One of the scales that I found for evaluation for me and my client STAR would be outcome rating scale. This is a 4-item criteria or questionnaire, basically asking the client, in these 4 different areas, do you feel as though the clinician is assisting? So first would be their personal well-being. Second, interpersonal. Third would be their social when it comes to relationships, school, and work life, and also an overall rating of the clinician. So I would ask STAR to complete these weekly, and her parents to complete these weekly, to see if the service I'm providing for her is sufficient enough to help her. And if some areas have lower scores, how can I take this feedback and develop and work on the particular area that may be scored low? Recommendations on African American youth and adults. It is essential for African American youth and adults to seek mental health services or be treated, because mental health issues are prevalent in the Black community and have been for a long time, and the stigma around seeking help and saying that you are okay, it could be detrimental to African Americans when it comes to their mental health issues. Mental health issues is not something that just goes away, but with age it begins to progress. Another recommendation is understanding that African American and police brutality are interconnected entities, and if not addressed as interconnected entities, then police brutality will continue to take place. And police brutality does not need to take place anymore, because it has been detrimental to African Americans' health, who have suffered directly and indirectly, and it has been detrimental to people of the race being killed.